WHO calls for Gaza's health infrastructure to be safeguarded. Google opens biggest European cyber center. Hello, good afternoon, and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Otto Othman, and you're watching World Today. Now, the World Health Organization, WHO, on Wednesday called for Gaza's vulnerable health infrastructure to be safeguarded as the war-torn enclave faces an increased risk of epidemics and challenges in detecting infectious diseases.
A fragile truce agreement between the Israeli regime and Hamas last week has allowed WHO and aid organizations to increase their deliveries of essential supplies, but these have been far from enough to meet the needs of Gaza's 2.3 million people. Speaking at a press conference in Geneva, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said only 15 of Gaza's 36 hospitals were still functioning and were completely overwhelmed. WHO has sounded the alarm about the spread of infectious disease in Gaza, where the internal displacement of the population has caused overcrowding in shelters and other temporary living facilities. The agency has noted a staggering increase in cases of diarrhea, especially among infants and children, and detected very serious signals around acute jaundice syndrome in the enclave. Tedros, who said that 1.3 million people were currently living in shelters in Gaza, said the enclave had recorded 111,000 acute respiratory infections, 24,000 cases of skin rash, and 12,000 cases of scabies since the conflict began.
Meanwhile, more hostages were freed from Gaza on Wednesday in exchange for Palestinian prisoners as mediators raced to broker another extension to the truce between Israel and Hamas hours before it was due to expire. But in a sign of the challenges facing negotiators, a Hamas source said the Palestinian military was not satisfied with Israel's proposals for another extension. It added that the talks were focused on extending the pause by 2 days or more. As discussions continued, 10 Israeli hostages arrived back in Israel, among them 5 women, 3 children, and 2 18-year-old men. Shortly after their arrival, it was confirmed Israel's prison service said 30 Palestinian prisoners had been released, including well-known activist Ahad Tamimi. 6 groups of hostages have now been released under the truce agreement brokered by Qatar, Egypt, and the United States. Another 4 Thai hostages were also freed and arrived in Egypt Wednesday, along with 2 women holding dual Russian and Israeli citizenship outside the terms of the deal. The release of the 2 women was described by Hamas as in recognition of the efforts of Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a related development, 2 Palestinian boys were shot and killed by Israeli occupation forces in Jenin in the north of the occupied West Bank. As Palestinian authorities said the Israeli army also bombed a house using a drone.
As talks to extend the truce between Israel and Hamas continued on Wednesday, before a looming deadline, the Israeli army raided the Jenin refugee camp, causing widespread destruction and killing 4 Palestinians, including 2 children. Adam Samir Al-Ghul, 8, was shot in the head, and Basil Sulaiman Abu Al-Wafa, 15, died after he was shot in the chest. The Israeli army also forced residents of the Ad Damj neighborhood to leave their homes at gunpoint and destroyed streets in the neighborhood. In a joint statement, the Israeli authorities said the army had also killed 2 other Palestinians reportedly involved in armed resistance, including a key leader. They were named as Mohammad Zubaidi and Hussam Hanun. According to the statement, 17 Palestinians were arrested in the raid. Witnesses in Jenin said they were shocked at the scale of Israel's latest raid on the refugee camp, which has been subject to several Israeli incursions since the war began.
Ministers of the world's largest regional security body are to meet today in Skopje as the 57-member organization faces its most serious crisis since its creation, with tension from Russia's invasion of the Ukraine remaining heightened.
The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or OSCE, has been struggling to survive as Russia is blocking decisions, such as the organization's budget. Created in 1975 as a forum for dialogue between the Eastern and Western blocs, the organization, of which both Russia and Ukraine are part, have been operating with extra budgetary means, but tensions are running high. Ukraine, as well as Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, have already said they would boycott the annual ministerial conference after the invitation of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who said he plans to attend. But the EU's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, said Wednesday that Russia needed to hear from ministers about why it is being condemned and isolated. He added the decision of North Macedonia, which currently holds the OSCE presidency, to allow Lavrov to participate aligned with the common objective of keeping multilateralism alive. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is also attending the meeting to seek to rally support for Ukraine.
Google opened its largest cybersecurity center in Europe on Wednesday, warning that cyber attacks were becoming increasingly common and risk disrupting political systems. The Silicon Valley firm said it opened the new center in the southern Spanish city of Malaga after a year of conversations with policymakers.
Both the European Union and Google have warned that the war in Ukraine showed how cyber tools could be used to destabilize democracy. Kent Walker, Google's global affairs chief, told reporters cyber attacks had risen by 38% last year and were becoming increasingly aggressive.
The cybersecurity center that we're establishing today in Malaga is designed to be a hub for all of Europe, to bring together leaders in cybersecurity from across Google and across Europe. We're also going to be using it as a base for helping train new generations of cybersecurity experts.
Google, which already has cybersecurity centers in Munich and Dublin, said its Malaga site would house experts building tools to combat cyber threats. It would also help to train government officials, companies and NGOs.
We need to adapt and call on
Argentina's Liberation President-elect Javier Milei, who on the campaign trail vowed to upend the establishment on Wednesday, tapped a former central bank governor and finance minister to the economic portfolio in his cabinet.
Milei said he had chosen Luis Caputo, an economist and finance minister under market-friendly ex-president Mauricio Macri, for the job in a country beset by skyrocketing inflation and poverty of 40%. Milei, a 53-year-old political outsider, stormed to victory in elections 10 days ago, pledging to ditch the peso for the US dollar and dynamite the central bank as ways of dealing with Argentina's long-running economic malaise. On Wednesday, he warned of months of stagflation, inflation coupled with economic stagnation ahead. Milei cautioned that inflation at 143% year-on-year will remain high due to the outgoing government's monetary policy. Since beating outgoing economy minister Sergio Massa in a 19th November runoff vote, Milei has sought to temper hopes for a rapid economic turnaround, saying it could take 18 to 24 months to bring inflation under control.
The Emirati host of the UN climate conference in Dubai denied reports that he used his presidency of the crucial talks on global warming to pursue fossil fuels deals. The allegations against Sultan Al Jaber, who is also CEO of his country's oil giant ADNOC, have fanned long-running suspicions over the wisdom of the petro-state hosting the COP28 talks.
But Jaber, who also chairs a UAE-owned clean energy company, strongly denied reports that he used his position as COP president to pitch new oil and gas investments to governments. Leaked documents obtained by the BBC and the Centre for Climate Reporting alleged that talking points prepared for Jaber for COP meetings with foreign governments pushed joint business opportunities in fossil fuels. The briefing notes, detailed in reports published on Monday, signalled ADNOC's willingness to work with countries including China, Germany and Egypt to develop oil and gas projects. The allegations fueled persistent skepticism over the sustainability of an oil executive leading the world's climate negotiations as governments are pushed to commit to phasing out fossil fuels, something no COP has ever achieved.
Coming up next, major cocaine haul seized off the coast of Senegal. Now, 4 migrants died after being thrown from a speedboat yards from a beach of Cadiz in southern Spain. Guardia Civil Police and Rescue Service said on Wednesday the boat was carrying a total of 27 migrants, 23 of whom arrived alive.
Images showed a black inflatable speedboat circling in heavy tides off the beach, and people on board pushing others off the side, who start to swim in the swell. Witness Javier Gonzalez, who was on the beach when the speedboat arrived and who helped with the rescue efforts, said he saw how the migrants started jumping into the water and how others were being forced to jump. As people on the beach run to help, the boat is seen speeding away. Another 8 adult male migrants were left on the shore of Sancti Petri Beach in nearby Chiclana, who were attended to by medical personnel and the Guardia Civil Police. 3 of them were later transported to hospitals as they were suffering from hypothermia. Cadiz is on the southern tip of Spain, around 20 kilometers from the North African coast. Despite its proximity, the Cadiz area is not a common destination for migration routes from the Maghreb, as it is located on the Atlantic coast, where sea conditions are more complicated and there is a lot of surveillance in the Strait of Gibraltar.
4 journalists were shot and wounded in southern Mexico on Tuesday, the latest in a series of attacks that make the country one of the most dangerous for reporters. Now, local prosecutor's office said that attackers on a motorcycle opened fire on 3 of the journalists around noon in Chilpancingo, the capital of Guerrero state, where they were covering a murder.
The journalists, identified as Jesus Antonio de la Cruz, Oscar Guerrero, and Victor Mateo Francisco, sustained injuries to the back, arm, and neck. The media advocacy group Reporters Without Borders, or RSF, said the trio were in stable condition. Several reporters held protest in Acapulco, demanding justice and calling on the authorities to act quickly to ensure their protection and that of their families. According to the group, the 3 journalists cover political and crime stories for different local media. Local police said a 4th journalist was wounded by gunfire in the city of Apatzingan in the neighboring state of Michoacan. Maynor Ramon Ramirez with the local news portal ABC, who had survived an attack in 2016, was taken to hospital. The shootings occurred a week after 3 other reporters were kidnapped and later released in the city of Taxco, also in Guerrero.
A U.S. Osprey military aircraft yesterday crashed off a Japanese island, killing 1 crew member and leaving 5 unaccounted for in the latest incident involving the tilt-rotor military aircraft. Now, the Coast Guard said in a statement that 1 unconscious person had been found in the sea near the scene of the crash off the island of Yakushima, but was later confirmed dead in hospital.
The statement also revised downwards an earlier statement to say that 6 crew had been on board instead of 8. An emergency management official in the Kagoshima region where the crash took place said police had received information that the aircraft had been spewing fire from a left engine. The U.S. military, which has around 54,000 personnel in Japan, has yet to comment publicly on the crash. The Coast Guard said it had mobilized patrol ships and aircraft around Yakushima, which lies south of Japan's southernmost main island of Kyushu. Japanese broadcaster NHK reported that the Osprey was on its way from Iwakuni U.S. base near Hiroshima in the Yamaguchi region, headed for the Kadena base further south in Okinawa. NHK also cited Defense Ministry sources saying that the aircraft was a CV-22 Osprey belonging to the U.S. Yokota Air Base in Tokyo.
Senegal's military has seized more than 3 tons of cocaine from a ship moored off the coast in one of the country's largest drug hauls. Naval authorities said there were 10 crew on board, one of whom was Senegalese.
Authorities did not provide further crew details nor indicate the value of the cargo, but confirmed the boat was seized in international waters. The vessel was intercepted by a naval patrol in international waters about 150 kilometers from the capital Dakar and taken to a naval base for identification and logging of the seized products. Long considered a simple transit zone for drugs produced in Latin America, West and Central Africa has become a region of high consumption, according to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. The UN body says between 2019 and 2022, at least 57 tons of cocaine was seized in West Africa or en route to the region, primarily in Cape Verde, Senegal and Benin. Senegal's navy also in January seized more than 800 kilos of cocaine from a ship off the coast of Dakar. Senegalese customs had furthermore announced in October 2022 the seizure of 300 kilos of cocaine, worth nearly 37 million euros, in a refrigerated truck coming from neighboring Mali.
Coming up in sports, Man United Champions League hopes fade as Galatasaray fight back for a draw. The Royal Malaysian Police PDRM FC scored a convincing 3-0 win over Kuching City FC in their first leg final of the 2023 Challenge Cup at the Petaling Jaya City Council MBPJ Stadium last night.
PDRM FC, under the tutelage of Dato' Ahmad Yunus Muhammad Alif, took full advantage of playing the match at their own backyard to take a healthy lead for the second leg final on Sunday in Sarawak. The first half ended scoreless as both teams missed several chances. The second half was, however, a different ballgame as PDRM FC took the lead in the 53rd minute when Muhammad Nabil Ahmad headed in a cross from Marcus Papi Macaulay. Boosted by the opening goal, PDRM FC grew in confidence, and 15 minutes later, Uche Agba struck the second goal, beating Kuching City goalkeeper Wan Muhammad Azri Wante from close range. PDRM FC skipper Amir Saiful Badli added the third in the final minute of the match to ensure his team will have a 3-goal advantage when playing the second leg final at the State Stadium in Kuching on Sunday. After the match, Dato' Ahmad Yunus said PDRM could not be on cloud 9 despite the 3-0 victory because they still have the second leg final to play in Kuching. Meanwhile, Kuching City coach Aidil Sharin Sahak admitted that Kuching City would be facing an uphill task when playing PDRM FC in the second leg final.
Terengganu FC, TFC and Australian outfit Central Coast Mariners shared their spoils in a 1-1 draw during the Asian Football Confederation AFC Cup Group G match at the Central Coast Stadium in Gosford, Australia yesterday.
The draw saw TFC under coach Tomislav Steinbruckner remain second in the group with 9 points, one behind the Mariners who have 10 points. Right from the first whistle, TFC showed a lot of urgency in attack and managed to create several opportunities, but both sides were guilty of missing goal-scoring chances in the first half. However, the start of the second half saw a transformation in attack for TFC when Engku Muhammad Nur Shakir Engku Yaakob struck the opening goal of the match in the 53rd minute. The lead stayed intact until the 87th minute, and just when TFC were looking like securing a prized victory, Miguel Di Pizio came around and spoiled the party by scoring the equalizer for Coast Mariners. In their first meeting at the Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin Stadium in Gong Badak on 20th September, TFC pulled off a pleasant upset by beating Coast Mariners 1-0, courtesy of an own goal by Nathan Paul. On 13th December, TFC will face Bali United from Indonesia in their final Group G match, which is also expected to decide the winner of the group.
Manchester United are on the brink of elimination from the Champions League after twice blowing a 2-goal lead to draw 3-3 at Galatasaray early this morning. A point leaves the Red Devils still bottom of Group A and needing to beat Bayern Munich in their final match at Old Trafford to have any chance of qualifying.
Alejandro Garnacho's opener was less spectacular but still impressive as he rifled into the roof of the net from Bruno Fernandes's pass after just 11 minutes. Moments later, Fernandes produced a powerful, dipping strike from outside the box that left Fernando Muslera helpless. Fernandes was then guilty of conceding a needless free kick on the edge of his own box before half-time. But Andre Onana must bear the bulk of the blame, as he was too easily wrong-footed by Hakim Ziyech, who fired into the bottom corner. United looked to have restored order at the start of the second period when Scott McTominay regained their 2-goal cushion. However, United were again pegged back by another glaring error from their goalkeeper. The Cameroonian has repeatedly made errors for the Red Devils in Europe, and Ziyech's second was arguably the worst of the lot. To rub salt into United wounds, it inspired another Galatasaray fightback. Karim Artukoglu's perfect control and deadly accurate finish flew past Onana at his near post to level 19 minutes from time.
Arsenal blasted their way into the last 16 of the Champions League on a freezing night at the Emirates, crushing RC Lens 6-0 with goals from 6 different players and ensuring that they qualified top of Group B. Now, Arsenal have 12 points with 4 wins from their 5 games, while Lens, who sit third with 5 points, can no longer reach the last 16.
Arsenal took the lead in the 13th minute with a scrappy goal from Kai Havertz. Gabriel Jesus doubled the lead 8 minutes later, collecting a sideways pass on the edge of the box from Bukayo Saka, with his left foot deftly switching back to his right to send the defenders the wrong way and burying his shot in the corner. Saka drove the knife in with a third in the 23rd minute, bundling in a weakly parried ball with his body after a shot by Gabriel Martinelli. Gunners captain Martin Odegaard made it 5 with the last kick of the first half, volleying in a long cross from Takehiro Tomiyasu charging down the right wing. After a quiet second half, Arsenal were awarded a penalty after a VAR review when Lens's Abdulkadir Kusanov stuck out an arm in his own area in the 85th minute, and a late Arsenal substitute, Jorginho, slotted the ball home from the spot to complete a miserable night for the visitors.
2 late goals by 19-year-old Nico Paz and Joselu gave Real Madrid a 4-2 fight-back win against Napoli, securing the top spot in Champions League Group C with 1 round of matches remaining. The 14 times champions, who had already secured qualification to the last 16, maintain their 100% record and have 15 points from 5 games, 8 points ahead of the Italian champions.
Real started well but was surprised by a quick counter-attack by the visitors, with Giovanni Di Lorenzo assisting Giovanni Simeone to open the scoring with a close-range strike in the 9th minute. Real hit back quickly, with Rodrigo equalizing with a fine shot into the top corner 2 minutes later, and they went ahead with a Jude Bellingham header in the 22nd minute. Napoli made the most of the first chance they had after the break, with Frank Aguiza levelling the game from a rebound in the 47th minute. Super sub and academy midfielder Paz gave Real the lead again with a stunner from outside the box in the 84th minute. Another substitute, Joselu, ended up scoring the 4th goal with a tap-in added time.
Elsewhere, Copenhagen ground out a goalless draw at Bayern Munich in their Champions League Group A match to snap their opponent's 17-game winning run in group stage matches and stay in contention to reach the last 16.
The Bavarians have secured top spot in the group on 13 points, with the Danish side second on 5. Both teams needed time to settle, with Bayern missing several key players through injury. Copenhagen had an early chance when Rooney Bargji's 27th minute shot sailed narrowly wide, and Thomas Müller's close-range header for Bayern was saved by keeper Kamil Grabara. The visitors, whose solid back line has been key to their success this season, defended well and came close again 2 minutes after the restart through Diogo Goncalves' curled shot. Bayern keeper Manuel Neuer came to the rescue, however, with a double save to deny El Yunusi and extend the German champions' record unbeaten run to 39 straight group stage matches in the competition.
Luke Donald will remain Europe's Ryder Cup captain for the 2025 edition in New York after leading his team to victory in Rome in October. Now, Donald has been victorious in all 4 of his appearances as player and 1 as captain, guiding Europe to a 16.5 to 11.5 win over the United States.
Donald will become the first Europe captain to serve consecutive terms since Bernard Gallagher between 1991 and 1995. Having been appointed captain in August 2022 as a replacement for the oust Henrik Stenson following the Swedes' move to LIV Golf, Donald helped his side regain the trophy and ensured Europe's unbeaten home record would stretch beyond 30 years. Among his 4 Ryder Cup appearances as a player, Donald's successes include the Miracle of Medina in 2012 when he secured the first singles point of Europe's remarkable comeback. Donald has served as vice-captain in previous editions under Thomas Bjorn in 2018 and Padraig Harrington in 2021. The next Ryder Cup will take place in September 2025. At the Bethpage Black, which is set to join Oak Hill Country Club as the second New York course to host the event.
France's 2030 Winter Olympics bid and Salt Lake City's 2032 proposal were picked as preferred hosts and will go into a dialogue with the International Olympic Committee. Bid leaders will intensify talks with the IOC, fleshing out plans and state support with the Olympic governing body to decide on the 2030 and 2034 hosts at its season in July 2024.
The French bid, which involves the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes and Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur regions, scored points for its plan to hold the Games in 4 separate clusters, as well as for its strong support from the public and private sector. Salt Lake City had initially wanted to bid for the 2030 Games, but dropped plans due to it being too close to the 2028 Summer Games in Los Angeles.
Well, that concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, WHO warns that untreated diseases could kill more than bombings in Gaza. Now, until then, I'm Otto Othman. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching and have a pleasant day ahead.